Well, a big hello and welcome to week 7 of the Zwift Racing League WTRL. I'm joined by the legend that is Dave Towle. Dave, you've had a massive day of commentating so far. Pretty good racing, hey?
Hey, it's been unbelievable, Kate. My day starts off with you. However, you and Anna do such a great job getting the ball rolling. I learned so much about the course. And I know now that you're not a super big fan of the unbelievably hard racing that goes on in France. So this course brings out the best, no doubt about it. Today, 48K. They call it Petit Boucle, the small circle, the same course that they use for the virtual Tour de France. It's going to be women and men, America's West. Time to get it on.
Well, to start off, before we head down to the racing, let's take a look at the standings so far. We've had 6 weeks up to date of pretty hard racing and some pretty tight spots at the top of the chart. So let's have a look. In the women's A division, the Revo scores are on the top of the table, 119 points. Not too far in front, only 4 points in front of ATP Racing Swarm. Cryogen Mount Evans on 101, and they are battling pretty hard for that third podium spot against BRT Doom Kittens, who are on 100 points. Waddy Inc. on 92 points in 5th. In 6th place, Revo Musketeers. Hen Velo WB on 76 points. And then down to AHDRL Butterboom in 8th on 32 points. Instafundler Prima in 9th on 31 points. So pretty tight at the top of that table and also around that third spot mark. In the women's, which should make today's pretty exciting. To the men, Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. This Dirty Rascals Riot is very, very, well, I was going to say in a real battle with FW Gold Rush. 1 point separating our top 2 teams. So that's going to be something we'll keep a very close eye on out here, including the bonus sprints. There's a lot to talk about. There's On the Rivet Hayes sitting in 3rd, but you can see it's very close there as well. As, oh my God, they killed Kenny sitting in 4th. Cryogen Pirasort in 5th. Audi A6, Costa Rica, Penvelo, Alto Velo, and the Zwift headquarters Rockets A team. That rounds out our top 10. So that's a good look at the men's A. I'll throw it back to you, Kate, for the B here, for the West Division men.
Well, we've got some Dirty Rascals on the top of the table here in spot 1 and 2. The
Sure
Stampede.
do.
Oh, they've got, yeah, literally. They've got quite a healthy lead. They're on 109 points, 12 points in front of the Dirty Rascals Believers. Tied. Look at this. The next 5 teams are very tight. Dirty Rascals Believers on 97 points. ATP Racing Krypton 97 points. KRTB Big Timbers 96 points. On the Rivet Zealbreakers on 95 points. I think we'll see a lot of action amongst those teams today. Dave trying to get up to the top of at least that second spot. In 6th TFC, here's my favourite one, the Pickle Juice. Still yet to try that on 89 points. The Zwiffer Dusters on 7th in 74 points. I could do with some Zwiffer dusting around here, to be honest. Penvelo B1 on 73 points. Musella Crocodile also on 73 points. And Waddy Inc. rounding out the top 10 on 69 points.
I was wondering if you'd know what a Zwiffer was down in Australia. Just another thing to investigate as we'll take a look at the C's now, Cryogen. This is one of the monster teams out there, the Grand Colombier version with 117 points. As we noted, the top teams are being promoted, the bottom teams being demoted from their division. It was so close in the B's. We'll look at here as we've now got our C's with Dirty Rascals, another version of the Dirty Rascals team, the Ambush in 2nd, Z Sun Control in 3rd, Lightning Velo, Panda Candy Racing in 5th, Dirty Rascals Grind 6th, Dirty Rascals Affogato in 7th, Deadpool's X-Force in 8th, Zwift Crushin' Daddies in 9th, and then Bison Boys rounding out the top 10s. The creativity with the team names is off the charts. I would put America's West C up against anyone. So, Kate, before we join the racing, there is a lot going on. In previous broadcasts with Nathan, we've discussed the Nations Cup coming up. So I do see Australia and New Zealand are in that 22
Ooh,
nations with the number of Zwift subscribers. Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to be racing against each other. So we're colleagues now. But Nathan is
yeah,
kind of
well,
one of our
just for
leaders
now.
on. Yeah, yeah. Changing. You've done that before, right? Your pro career, where you race with ladies all year long, and then you show up at Worlds and you're racing against them, but you never really forget who your friends are in this world. I think cycling
Yeah.
shows that more than anything. So yeah,
Well,
and then
that's
World
it. And it is
Championships.
so exciting, Dave. Sorry, but I'll leave you to
No,
explain the Old Nations Cup. It's a pretty exciting one to have an esports world championship on the 9th of December. That is incredibly exciting. We'll have a rainbow jersey wearer for the men and the women. And something absolutely worth celebrating is the fact that for the first time in my knowledge of any cycling event ever, is equal prize money, equal broadcast, equal distance, everything equal, men and women. That's pretty cool. I mean, I just love
we
that. So then, yeah.
I was going to say Kate Courtney, who's the mountain bike world champion from the United States, put up a really cool tweet earlier today saying, "Hey, take note, everybody, what's happening." And a lot of this credit goes to the people at Zwift. At the Tour de France virtual, they did such a great job of elevating women's sport. They don't devalue the men. That's the beautiful thing here, Kate. You don't need to take from the men and what they're doing to build the women. You build the women as its own entity and lift it up. And that's what's happening here. So thank you, Kate Courtney, for those comments. The prize money, and I was thinking about this, Kate. Jerseys, the World Champions jersey, every World Championship discipline has a slightly different, whether it's the time trial, the chrono that's got the clock on it, or the mountain bike is a little different than the pro road. The digital esports Zwift World Champions jersey is incredibly cool. I have a few different jerseys around my place here that I really, really love looking at. Great mementos, right? I have a Rowan Dennis World Champions jersey of the regular kind. I'm going to get a virtual Tour de France, some kind of lit up jersey, and remember the men and the women. You could rotate it back and forth, right? As you could,
Yeah, well,
so many
that's
cool
really
things.
cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the pixelated across the chest, which is
Yeah,
a pretty cool way to do it. And I do think that this is an event that a lot of people and a lot of young people will really be aspiring to in the future. So I'm pretty excited. Let's take a look at the video for the Nations Cup, though, Dave, because that's the top 22 nations by subscribers on Zwift, and they are essentially having a mass teams time trial per country to see who can aggregate the quickest time and take a little bit of national pride. So let's take a look at that. All right, so let's take a look at the nations that are competing. We've got Australia and New Zealand bookending there, all the usual suspects. France and Germany, the USA, the United Kingdom, they've announced a very strong team. The Netherlands also a very strong team. So you might take a look at these flags and think these are the ones you see the most in Zwift. So the top 22 are chosen by the number of subscribers. Now, if you are happen to be from a country that isn't on that list, you can still race, but you will end up in that rest of world category. So it's pretty exciting. December the 5th and the 6th, you need to check your Zwift event to make sure you get the timing right on that. You can go to WTRL.racing for a little bit more info and make sure you get on board. The top 10% and the bottom 10% will be discounted to make sure that the speed is averaged in the fairest way possible. And I know I'll be out there. So, yeah, you might be my co-commentator now, Dave, but you'll be my competitor in not too long. I got my eyes on you. Yeah.
bring it on. Bring it on. I'm so stoked. It's not even funny. So I've been training my whole life for this. So that's one of the beautiful things about Zwift. I saw some comments, Kate, earlier from some women that were racing in our C category in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa, saying how cool it was to be racing against a bunch of, it's not only like-minded, but ability level. Like, if you're a woman C racer, you don't get to experience 50 rider packs, and they had larger than that out there. And good for you. Everybody that's jumping in the deep end and challenging themselves by racing in the Zwift Racing League. That when they announced this, Kate, I was so happy to see that it wasn't just going to be serving the highest end, the A categories. It's the Bs and the Cs where we see so many people getting outside of their comfort zone during this COVID time and growing with Zwift. So super, super cool. We're going to jump right into the racing now as let's see what we've got going on out here. And again, Zwift community, Kate, has been amazing. It's very, very nice to see everybody who joins us. I love this evening, evening here in North America that we get to spend. Just for perspective, it's 8 o'clock at night right now here in the Mountain Time Zone. What time is it where you are, Kate, in Australia?
It is 2 p.m. in the afternoon, so it's quite civilized time zone for any of the Aussies.
Yeah, it's just one day ahead, right? You have to let me know how the stock market
Oh yeah,
does.
it is. Yeah, it's
Get out ahead of that.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
I forget about that. But we do have some Aussies who double up, who race in the APAC League on Tuesday night Australian time, and then also jump in today. Ange McRae is the constant name that we see racing across categories, which is really cool. And I also think that the different regions offer just slightly different flavour to them. So what we've seen from the America West crew is slightly different to what we see in APAC. But, I also think that these later, Australia kind of leads the way because of the time zone. And I do think that these communities at the back end of the time zone, well, they benefit from being able to watch how it plays out on this course in the earlier community leagues.
Well, we talked about that in the previous race with Nathan, where without a doubt, Kate, having that knowledge, especially of the finale, and also being prepared for it's not just the aqueduct, but there's that reverse Queen of the Mountain or King of the Mountain that we'll see out here, where you see riders, if you're not positioned and paying attention, you can see gaps open up. We saw some interesting scenarios playing out in the previous race, especially the men's side of things, as guys who missed the train were unable to rejoin, and they even threw some resources at it, and it still wasn't enough. So being attentive out here is going to make a big difference. It's basically, think 48 kilometers of racing here. There's no, I would say that typically the groups that have gone to the line throughout the day have been over 10, less than 30 riders. And taking a look at Ryan Carter's question, are they going to get an esports Rainbow World Champions jersey? Absolutely. As Kate was saying, that cool digitalized rainbow, it's going to be historic. That's December 9th. So, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I believe they'll get one in the post as well, won't they, from the UCI, which will be a pretty good new kit day. And I think that would be possibly one of the strangest ways to get a new kit is in the mail like that. But it's a brave new world when it comes to esports racing.
It is. And boy, I have to say that this is one of the real upsides for so many folks that get to race in esports. Again, all the different categories too. So this is for everybody. But right now, we're in with the very high end. This is America's West, out racing on Petit Boucle, a small circle, a route that was used for virtual Tour de France. And this is a challenging course. I would say that we watched earlier today, this would go back way earlier to Europe, where Catherine Curie, who is in Northern California but's been racing, there's a few Americans that have been jumping in with that European East or West. And she made a pretty big impact on the two significant climbs, talking about the QOM, reverse QOM, as well as the aqueduct. But it wasn't enough to completely blow the race apart. But it did put plenty of riders in trouble.
Well, I don't think the hills themselves are a massive challenge, but what is quite a big challenge is that you have that first sprint and then the KOM, which is really a pretty short and not too difficult climb. So we can almost call that a sprint as well. But
Yeah.
they're pretty much back to back. So that plays a much bigger danger and strategic consideration, because if you go too hard in that first sprint, you won't get to recover. And that's a very big opportunity for an attack point, I think.
Completely agree. And actually, that's really, that you said it all right there, Kate, because it's about a 7-kilometer sector that you have when you go in, and we're starting it right now, to tell you the truth. This is going to be the run up. So these sprints are scored 3, 2, and 1 points, 3 deep at each one. So some of them are kind of traditional bonus sprints. The others are more like a King of the Mountain or Queen of the Mountain that we're looking at. But this is going to be the first points that we have on offer that comes up here. And then it's just a barrage for the next, let's say 5 minutes of racing. Pretty crazy out there. This is where you will see a few riders coming out the back of the group as exceptional efforts are going to be made up at the front. There's going to be ATP here. So we'll see if they're going to hold on, looking for that arch here, the gantry, where we'll score, again, first 3 over the line, collecting the first points on offer here today on Petit Boucle.
So, of course, it depends how many points they earn out on course, and then they earn points when they go across the start-finish line. So there's a bit of strategy, and do you go for those intermediates, use up a bit of energy, or do you just hang out for the finish? So far, well, they're into this first sprint along the pavé now. Once they hit that, the finish arch isn't too far away. Ange McRae, she learnt from last night, she's tucked in at the front. Aldridge is on the move, though. Big acceleration for her. Ossenbrink drops the aero, the power up with the aero there as she accelerates away, which is a pretty good move.
That should be it.
Doesn't need to put in that much effort. And it was Anna Rogers, I think, who came across the line in second. But got to be careful, Dave, because you really only, I say this every week, I think, people are going to get sick of me saying this, but as long as riders do it, I'll keep saying it. You only need to win by a centimetre. You don't need to win by 10 metres. So I do urge everybody to really temper their effort unless they are going on the attack afterwards. But that doesn't appear to be the case here. Still quite a compact group together. Also a bit different to what we saw in some of the other grades. So massive acceleration. Also with the use of a power-up, that would certainly aid that gap, but power-up's being dropped left, right and centre, and Ossenbrink just kept accelerating away off the gas toward the line. So I think it was Aldridge crossing in second ahead of Rogers and Ange McRae. We'll wait until we see those points come through when it all gets updated. But it's a good form guide to see who might have good legs. If you're willing to go for that first sprint, Dave, I reckon that you've got a bit of confidence. Back yourself.
I would agree. Absolutely an indicator. The good sensations, as they say. I'm going to call that previous, your comments, pro tips with Kate Bates. We should get a sponsor for that, because I could not agree more. Never do any more work than you need to. Sometimes I can understand from my perspective, Kate, not having a lot of experience, I think it's easy to just want to make double sure that you're going to win, and you don't need to do that. You only need to be sure. You don't need to be double sure. And every time that you burn extra calories out there, I don't know, you might expose yourself later in the race or not have as sharp of a sword as you want for the finale. It's such an interesting sport when you look at, I've always said this one, the name of the game out here is helping everybody finish what's on their plate before you start on yours.
Yeah, I really like that. I might nick that one off you, Dave.
Oh,
Making sure everybody else finishes theirs before. Yeah, I like that.
That's my Thanksgiving Day gift to Australia, then, Kate, if you want to share that around with your community. Yeah.
I think I offended a few Americans last night. I didn't even know when Thanksgiving was. That's a bit of a shocker.
Oh, really? Well, I'll speak on behalf of the Zwift Community Live Americans that you know, and we're not offended at all, because it's kind of a random one for sure. But hey, no problem. Look at this, though, on the aqueduct. The Romans built these aqueducts all over Europe about 2,000 years ago. This one looks beautiful, very well kept up, as we're going to score the top 3. Ange McRae up there for second, but McRae right behind that. Is that going to be Stotts that we're looking at the Revo rider? I believe so, as we're going to see them collect things back together here at the front, but always a little bit of a danger point for a few riders here. Kat
Well, it's
Salthouse
a little
moving
bit
up,
of
the
the
ATP
usual
rider.
suspects happening, isn't it? Alicia Stutz, she was on really good form last week, and the Revo Scores riders are not only riding into more form each week, it also seems that they're really riding into some very good strategies. So she took the points over the line ahead of Ange McRae, who I keep saying is on the up and up, but she's really improving. Anna Rogers and Tracy Moore in third and fourth there also for Revo Scores. So they're pretty well represented, 3 in the top 4 there. The gaps are starting to open up. So this is the point we talked about at the beginning, the real danger point when they have that sprint back to back and they really don't have a lot of time for recovery. I do think these groups will probably come back together and form a bigger group, but it just shows that some legs are really starting to hurt.
Yeah, let's watch closely now. This is a moment here for those riders in the group that Nathan has queued up here. That chase group they're going to get there. Yeah, they're not playing around with it. This is smart on there. Just everybody throw down right now. We need to get up into that group here. As when you start to spend a couple of minutes out in the wind like this, that's where you really start to burn calories, and you don't have calories to give away at this point. This is a long day of racing, almost 50 kilometers out here. So it's really always interesting. They don't always make it back, but when you see 3 teammates here, that's ATP, the gray-orange kit, gray, orange, and white, I should say, that actually benefits the group. There should be really cohesive. They're not going to play any games, and they are closing it down slowly. They'll get there. They're going to get there.
Well, ATP and Revo Scores, they're both really strong teams. Nobody's going to get a free pass in any of this racing. And you're spot on, Dave, when you say it's a long day out there. So for a bit of perspective, World Championships that we've been talking about coming up, the esports, it's only 50 kilometres. So this is 47K plus the distance they travel out of the pen. So this is one of the longer esports races that we do actually see. And it's the longest so far in this series. I feel like they've kind of been building up to this, but the course description makes it look a little bit easier than it actually is. And when you've got teams on the front like Revo, who they're not giving them a free pass, they're not sitting up and letting them roll back on. They're making them work really hard for it.
And that's going to be, that last 5 minutes, you'd say advantage Revo, right? ATP's fought the way back, and now they're going to go ahead and look like they're going to try to get on the offensive right away as they move the entire team onto the front. This is turning into quite a battle once again. Revo Scores, ATP. These are the races I look forward to so much throughout the week as we're into week 7 of 10 for our community racing here. These 2 teams have locked arms. Do you see that name popping up? Barbara Fazzoli? That's a rider to watch. She's had a win along the way. Ange McRae, Barbara Fazzoli, Kat Salthouse, these are the usual suspects that have made the vanguard of the race. I love it. So taking a look, Velo News had some comments there about the race is only 50 kilometers, but the men's and women's winners, right? This was the Kate Courtney comment that I was referring to earlier, where she was mentioning that's a little more money than you see at the in real life World Championships. And I love it. I really do. There's Anna van der Breggen is racing.
Yeah. The Australian team, I'm really proud to say, is a really strong team. Nobody can question the strength of it. They're not unknown names. They're absolutely.
Who should I watch for?
The best.
Yeah, who's the Australians? What do you think, Kate?
Well, Sarah Gigante in the women is definitely a dark horse. She has been working so hard through. They've had a pretty hard lockdown in Melbourne over the Australian winter, and she hasn't been able to get out and about too much. So she has just literally been a slave to the indoor trainer. And the day that they relaxed restrictions in Melbourne and allowed them outside, she went and broke all the records on the local climbs in
so she's
the Melbourne region. So she's on form. Yeah.
incredibly talented. And also, is she 21 years old yet? I'd be surprised. Junior world champion just a couple of years ago. What a talent she is. We got to watch her on Zwift Community Live back in April of this year at events like the Gila. And she's such a talent riding for that Tibco team, the same team as Lauren Stevens. You could see two Tibco riders on the podium because my hot tip for America is definitely, well, we have that really interesting scenario where you've got the Kristen Kolchinsky story, which is incredible. A rider who's never taken out a racing license before is now part of the UCI family and is going to be racing at a world championships. Absolutely unbelievable ascension to that level. And then Lauren Stevens. She won a virtual Tour de France stage. She was at the World Championships in real life this year for America. I mean, Gigante, Lauren Stevens, those are two of the riders that transcend, that they are big in virtual racing. They're big in real life racing. And it's going to be a rider like that. I don't think it's going to be just strictly one or the other. It's going to be the riders that have both experiences in their life that are going to be successful. And I'm really looking, those are two really good names. Another sprint coming up, Austin Brink, the rider that we're with here. Slightly reduced group, although not that reduced, Kate. Most of the heavy hitters, or all the heavy hitters, are still here.
Yeah, it's a bigger bunch than we've seen at this point in a race in the earlier weeks. For sure, it is much more together. I mean, if we look at the last points race, scratch race they had, the NYC Everything Bagel, wasn't that brutal? Can you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Yes.
chest and legs still hurt even thinking about that. And they were in ones and twos from about 5 kilometers in. So this is definitely a different flavored race. But it doesn't mean that it's any easier on them, for sure. It's just a different dynamic.
I agree. They didn't go as ballistic on the aqueduct as they could have, right? And I think that's been the difference maker for why you're seeing so many riders keeping their heads above water out here and making it into, at this point now, basically we're starting the middle phase of this race. So,
well, there's the petite KOM that is coming up a little bit later, between the 25 and 30 kilometer mark. But that, I don't think that has proven nearly as decisive as it may look like on paper. Because if you look at the profile, it certainly looks like it can make a really big difference. But honestly, I mean, I'd be interested, Dave, in what's happened in some of the community leagues overnight while the Aussies were sleeping. But in APAC, that hill wasn't at all a big impact in the outcome of the race.
So just here and getting some information, the Canadian champion, Austin Brink, a mother of two. That's always noteworthy. Hashtag mom power out here for Austin Brink. The reigning Zwift Canadian national champion is going to be a rider to watch today as well. There's that maple leaf. I always have affection for that flag. Canadians are incredibly cool. I'm sure you already knew that through your time racing with them, Kate.
Well, look,
but also they have...
I don't know. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I don't know if you know this, Dave, but in Australia we claim anything that even has a tangential link to Australia in any way. So Austin Brink is riding with that maple leaf on, but she actually is a bit half Aussie. She lives in Australia. So I'm going to claim her for her results today. I'll put her in the same pot as we put Pavlova because we claim that as well. We've got the men on screen now too. They're out on course. They're about 12 kilometres in. They've also got a pretty big bunch. Again, this is something we saw in the men's APAC, Dave, that it was a much bigger bunch in the early stages. And here they go. Kieran Lewis, boom, he rockets out. Good name, isn't that a good one? Out of the front of the pack for this intermediate Pave sprint. He's done this on a number of occasions and kind of shown almost a bit of a mental edge that he's got good legs. He accelerates, but what I liked about that, Dave, was he then sat back, drilled back the power, but he already had a big enough gap to take those points. So very good ride from the Zwift headquarters. Rider there, Kieran Lewis.
Mental chicken oriental. as they say in Ireland. This guy is in fuego. Kieran Lewis, the Australian, here now showing us how it's done. Aero helmet and everything. Disc wheel. Kieran brought his A game. Top three scoring the points, racing for the ZHQ. That's our headquarters Rockets team. So, okay, we'll tally those points up. The guy's now motoring into the first quarter of the race again. It's 48 and a little change out there today. Okay, I think now is the time that I get to ask Kate. You're an Australian sportswoman. Australia, I'm going to give credit where it's due, pound for pound, ounce for ounce. There's no nation like the Aussies. I'm a big fan. What is this Aussie, oi, oi, oi thing all about? Where did that come from? What's the background on that? We try to learn something, right? Wasn't that the agreement? We were going to learn something every week. Tell me, what is that all about?
It is. You know, there's a bit of argument as to where it actually came from, actually. And, I mean, I hate to admit it, but I literally think it was... you use the word redneck in America. We use the word bogan in Australia. I think it was... It's been agreed that it was a bunch of bogans who just wanted to be loud and doesn't kind of get louder and more obnoxious than Aussie, oi, oi, oi. But in saying that, it is not just the cat cry of the bogans of Australia. That is absolutely in our DNA, to scream that with as much guttural force as we possibly can, pretty much on any occasion. It doesn't even have to be a sporting occasion for us to get quite patriotic and belt that one out. You should give it a go, Dave. It feels good on the soul.
Oh, right near my house here in Fort Collins, Colorado, there's a bar called the Bondi Beach Bar. And you can go by there and hear that any Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night. All you want. Here's
Dave,
another sprint
Bondi?
point. No, you got me. So that's my learning moment. This is a 2-up sprint. Oh, man, these guys are scraping the bottom of the wattage barrel. But Kieran Lewis getting another one. The kid is killing it out here. Well, so we'll look at the
Travis
back end
Fraser
API. Don't lie.
A really good kick from him. He's had some very big turns of speed throughout the series.
Well,
but it is interesting to see when he accelerates here. He just gets the edge over Kieran Lewis, but Kieran Lewis is using that feather power up. It says 0%, but it was a small kick up, and it's technically a KOM, but it does actually look like Kieran Lewis has got that over Travis Fraser from OMG. They killed Kenny. So, well, we know that Kieran Lewis is on a mission.
Are we supposed to say OMG, not oh my God? I'm always wondering whenever we read that, because that team is up in our top 10 week in, week out. They killed Kenny squad. Well, here's the front group. One rider just off of the front right now. This has been an active race, really going for those bonus points out there. Those points, I feel sometimes like a broken record, Kate, to tell you the truth, explaining. But again, for the folks joining us now for America's West, this is our final race of the evening for the men and the women. The points that they're sprinting for here are put into a basket of points that any rider on your team. So think of each team having a basket. You throw in the bonus points that you get. I mean, we've seen teams sweep the top 3 spots. That's 6 total points, but it's 3, 2, and 1 points. That happens multiple times. I believe it's 4 times today that they have those bonus opportunities. Well, those points, we made the point earlier, Kate. We had a team that did it, I think it was Aeonian, that's a good example. They had garnered something like 14 points before the finish. Well, that right there means you've got, like a 12th place already before the race is even over, right? 12th place points from the finish without even using one of your riders yet. So it can be worth it to go for these bonuses, but you don't want to run your team ragged, stepping over $1 to pick up a dime is a saying here in the United States, meaning always keep your eye on where the big money is, and that's at the finish line.
And they can use it quite strategically to send a couple of their riders, bearing in mind that they have, 6 to 8 riders out on course. So they do have the opportunity to send some riders out just to get the sprint points who, may not be competitive in a big bunch sprint. Kieran Lewis is a really good example, actually. We haven't seen him winning a bunch sprint when 40 riders have been sprinting, but he's really handy in those intermediate sprints. And a comparison we could use would be Peter Sagan. he's exceptionally good.
He'll be happy to hear that.
At winning.
Kieran will be very happy to hear that, Kate.
Yeah. For those, but Peter Sagan gets that the green jersey, because he picks up those points. He's got enough speed to edge away at those intermediate sprint points. But a big bunch sprint, it does have to be the right conditions for him to win. Oh, look at this! It's like speed. Sandra Bullock is shooting off the front here. Is this where's the rest of the bus?
Keep it over 50K an hour. This peloton
behind them.
If you don't keep it over 50K an hour, this peloton is going to blow up out here. So taking a look at the front group right now, I was hoping, Kate, that you were going to compare me to Muhammad Ali.
Well, do you sting like a butterfly? What? Wait. Dance something like a butterfly, sting like a bee?
Yeah, well, I tried. So that was Sean
We've
Bullock
just heard from, yes. I was just about to say that, Dave, that we've been corrected. It is, in fact, Sean Bullock. Apologies, Sean. Look,
I think
I think Sandra Bullock's a bit of a legend. So, I don't think that's too much of an insult.
I agree. Oh, look at that name, David Fraser-Moran, popping up. That's been one of the riders to watch, no doubt about it, kind of quietly staying back in the wheels. But you know what? Sean Bullock, his fan base will be happy to see him having a great ride out here today. That team looks like they're trying to organize something up there on the front right now, as a matter of fact, as we're again, a few more bonus sprints coming up here, including a challenging climb, a bit of a pinch point out there. But typically, Kate, I would say this is an attrition type course where it's not about breaking away and winning. It's just about ultimately it's going to be somewhere around 15 riders that make it in the group that gets into 1K to go. And then we'll find out who the fastest man or woman is. This is one of my favorite shots here, the lavender growing. This course that was used for the virtual Tour de France has been one of the most well-received, at least from the comments that I've read. People love this course, and here they're galloping. Now, as we make our way into the boards, that means the arch is there. We'll score that as a top 3. I think, you know what? I'm going to hold off before I make a guess, but they'll score that one. More bonus points to be distributed. We're taking a look at the replay right now.
Well, this is a pretty good acceleration. Philippe Nystrom, he's someone that has
Costa Rica
exceptionally well in earlier weeks. And he's already picked up a few sneaky points in earlier sprints. We'll see that when the board pops up. But he's done it in a way that we haven't even really noticed that he's been sprinting. That is smart to me. It means if you don't put your head in the wind too much, you're not using too much energy, but you can still kind of tick away and earn some points. Over the weeks, he's proven to be a pretty tidy sprinter. So if he's just testing his legs a bit, and we might see a bit more of him toward the finish. Pretty high heart rate of 172. Last night we were discussing what is a high heart rate, and I suggested anything between kind of 170, 175 and 190 would be around max. If we look over at the women on the left, Cindy Lowe from Penn Velo, 187 heart rate. That is absolutely full gas going over this climb. And look at it. It is absolutely obliterated.
Shattering.
That field that was a blob is now single file, one at a time coming through. Cindy Lowe,
there's mushroom clouds
climbed
going up all over
very
now.
Well in New York. But, that was a bit different flavour of climb, but she's doing very well here again. Really,
look at the names that are remaining in contention here. Rogers, Stotts, Salthouse, Ange McRae there, Barreto. This is bananas right now. So this was the big moment. This thing has blown to bits. I don't think you're going to see a group larger than 10 if this thing does regroup at all. So Lowe has hit incredibly hard. She's got the 20-pound sledgehammer out for the Penn Velo team. They've been waiting for this moment as well. And not running out of her mind right now at 4 watts per kilo. So It's not like this is one last ditch effort. I think that this is organized, well put together, and there's not going to be many riders that can respond. Anna Rogers, the Canadian Revo Scores here, has got a couple of riders that are still in contention. You can see, again, BRT's Ange McRae hanging in there. ATP's Kat Salthouse is trying to hold on as well. What a dynamic moment here, Kate.
Well, this is really interesting tactics because there's still over 20K left to race. So if Cindy Lowe wants to go solo, that is a big ask because in hot pursuit, Alicia Stats and Anna Rogers, they're both Revo riders. If they can rejoin, then Cindy Lowe will find herself outnumbered and in a bit of a tough situation. So will it have been worth it to get those points? That's my question. And I think that's probably going through her head at the moment. Now, look, they're in bits and pieces. They're just dribbling up this climb one at a time. But I do think that this will reform because there's no significant bunch to pull away nor to chase at this point. So, I mean, I don't know, Dave. Why are they using the energy like this? I'm a harsh stickler. I know. I watch this and I think, what are you doing that for? But I guess in my years of racing, the one thing that they drill into you is efficiency. You only use the energy when you absolutely have to.
Well, and I completely agree. That's one of the things you learn at the highest level of racing is that the top teams and the best riders, when they hit out, it's for a reason. They don't just hit out to hit out. You see that in amateur racing. Here we use the numbers to categorize. And in a Cat 3 race, you'll see guys attack and you'll ask, why did that happen? And they'll be like, I don't know. I just felt like doing it. Well, you don't do that in the pro race at the elite level, right? When they hit out, there's a damn good reason. It's part of the tactics and strategy that they and their team have developed. And this is chaos. This is chaos theory racing going on right now. No doubt about it. We've got 20K to go. That is a long time to continue racing here. I'm really wondering, though, Kate, I agree with you 100%. Completely in line with your thinking, but I don't think we're going to see a big group again. I think it's going to be maybe 5-6 riders that come together on the front if this thing settles down here. Again, chaos is a great word for what we're looking at for the women right now. Lowe lit the fuse. Is she the bomb? Well, she's going to have to prove it over the next 20K because that's going to be Stats, the American on Revo, joining, and she has a teammate right behind her. So now Stats just sits on, right? I wouldn't press on here and take a pull, would you? With a teammate behind you, I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, this is a good dynamic. Alicia Stats, she's pretty hardcore. She's got 3 small humans and she's just getting better and better as she's balancing work and being a mum with her Zwifting career. So
mom of 3. Is that
and mum of 3? What a legend, huh?
Wow.
I think if Santa could bring her a Wahoo fitness bike, I think that would make her life a little bit easier too. Shout out to Santa if he's listening. And listen, their team manager, Anna Rogers, she's in hot pursuit. She's not too far behind with Ange McRae. And I think that if Alicia and Anna Rogers can get together, they are in a pretty formidable position here. So the one thing going to the front on a climb can do, rather than so much pulling a turn, it can allow you to dictate a pace that's comfortable to you. So now that they've gone through that KOM, they will be looking to regroup as a 5. They've still got 20K left to race. So it's a long way to go, even with 2.
Very noteworthy there, Kate, because everybody's going to basically do the same amount of work on that climb, one way or another. The drafting really doesn't have a huge effect like it would right now, where it's really significant. But when you get on a steep climb or relatively steep climb, it's going to come down to your watts per kilo. So, all right. Well, we haven't seen anything like this. What we're witnessing, we've done a lot of racing on Petit Boucle today, but nothing like this scenario has played out. Very interesting race to wrap up the day here. Can these two do it, Kate? I mean, anything's possible in cycling. I'm going to say yes, actually. I'm a believer. I'm pretty motivated right now to watch a breakaway make it stick. It's so rare out here. It takes real heroes or heroines.
You're such a glass half full commentator, Dave. I love it. You've got a lot of faith, and they have earned it. And I think that is, an epic effort so far from these ladies. Cindy Lowe, she has been consistently epic up the climbs. And she's riding the Tron bike, so we know from that she's at least a motivated climber because you have to have ridden 50,000 vertical meters within the Zwift world to get that bike. So, if nothing else, we know that she enjoys doing the climbs, but she has made really consistently powerful attacks. And we talk about there not being a lot of draft effect on climbs. But the biggest difference between climbers and non climbers, I would say, is the pacing. Because there are some athletes who prefer to be more like a diesel and kind of chug up, but at a fairly consistent pace. And there's others who are quite dynamic and like to attack and accelerate. Lo is definitely one of those riders. So she takes it upon herself. She doesn't just hold on to wheels knowing that she won't get dropped. She actually puts the effort into attacking. It's paid off so far. They do have about 4 seconds on Salthouse, McRae and Rogers, who are the three that are in hot pursuit. I think it'll come back together for these five. That definitely puts Revo in the hot seat with three riders amongst that five. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But shout out to Ange McRae as well. This is her second time on this course. She also raced in APAC last night and was impressive. So, she just can't get enough, Dave. 2 races in 12 hours.
Yeah. I like her style. Definitely a workhorse. I like where Revo scores the situation. It is going to come back together. It's 5 riders. We're looking at the vanguard, the front of the race. So, Kate, you're going to predict that one correctly here. So I don't think it's going to be any larger than 5. I love this world, this France. It's so beautiful where we're racing right now.
It's a bit romantic, getting a shout out. They've done a beautiful job rendering the French world. Yes.
You can almost say, the tractor there. It is so beautiful. And we look now, the riders don't get to experience that. I heard you talking about that earlier. When you're racing in France, your nose is down on your stem. You're pretty much groveling your way around the country. It's not like you're going from vineyard to vineyard, that's for sure. Well, you might be going by the vineyards. So this is the group that has your winner in it. I have no doubt about that. As we get a chance to take some inventory here, it was Cindy Lowe. Penn Velo, a team out of the Bay Area, San Francisco. Kat Salthouse of the ATP team. She's a heavy hitter, no doubt about it. Definitely knows how to punch hard when it matters. So, you take a look at this group now. The name of the game, there's always going to be the pride of winning the bike race, no doubt about it. But this is a team event, and Revo Scores has been one of the teams around the world that has been the most impressive in my mind. And they're back at it here again today, Kate.
Yeah, they've really figured out how to race as a team in the virtual world, which is really impressive. Because when you first start, I think it can be a little bit clunky. Even when you have some pretty impressive riders, it can be a bit clunky trying to figure out how to coordinate moves while you're all in your garage setup. But they will have some form of communication, Discord or such, so that they can chat to each other while they're out there and keep those team tactics going. But I think Revo Scores are kind of writing the textbook. And I would say that across all the leagues that we look at in this community leagues, that Revo Scores are one of the strongest teams, women and men, who seem to have their tactics really down pat. Week after week, they're really dialed. They're delivering on it. And, they will very likely move up a division next year if they keep going at this rate, which I think is pretty exciting for all of the riders involved and likely a very big motivation for them as well.
Yeah, they come in with the game plan and they have the strength and ability to back it up. And that's what's so impressive. It's one thing to have the brain power to know how to race. It's another thing to actually be able to do it. Anna Rogers is another one of the really talented riders. So, that's a team to keep your eye on as we'll make our way into, again, to set the table for everybody, we're at 33 of 48 kilometers raced here. This is the 7th of 10 races in the series. We've been watching closely now. It's the points that matter here. Looks like another good day for Revo Scores. Is 2 in the top 5 puts you in a really solid position, but obviously we score a lot deeper than that. There's that beautiful Australian flag of the BRT rider, Ange McRae. Anna Rogers there, one of the Canadians in this group on that Revo Scores team. ATP, the team in gray and orange. is it looks like it's going to be hard to escape this group, and it's going to be awfully hard to drop anybody out of this group. I will be shocked if it isn't five going to the line, Kate.
No, these five have got a pretty good rhythm going, and there's not a lot of reason for any of them in particular to attack.
To start
Alyssa Scott's
attacking,
her.
exactly. Right.
Yeah, I mean, her 15-second sprint is edging toward the 10 watts per kilo. She's a real powerhouse. If I were her, I'd be sitting in and thanking my lucky stars I was in such a good team where she can sit, because having Anna Rogers there, they're both very good sprinters, and it gives them both a lot of options. Ange McRae, on the other hand, is one of the more aggressive riders. We've seen her do some beautifully timed attacks and really throw a cat amongst the pigeon in scenarios where we've thought have been very predictable. And I am aware that they can probably hear us as well, and they're probably saying, don't give our tactics away. Sorry, that's all part and parcel of the game. We get to guess what you're doing, and you get to prove us right or wrong. So soon they will head back over that aqueduct for another KOM sprint, and not far after that is the intermediate sprint. I'm interested to see whether they choose to duke it out amongst themselves in these break and use some energy, or whether they just keep going, because it's only 10 seconds behind with a couple more chases. And I think they can do a bit of damage to themselves rather than to the bunch if they put in too much effort. So they've hit the KOM, but it is a fairly gentle KOM. We're looking at Tracy Moore chasing here. She's got Morgan Aldridge with her, and they're about 9-10 seconds behind that lead group. So, look, they can see them. They've got them within sniffing distance. So let's see how this plays out.
The problem is the points here will incentivize the front group. The tactics are really different here in the Zwift Racing League versus a standard race. It's all about the win, Kate, right? I mean, no one really cares about second, third. They do care, but in bigger perspective, it's all about winning in cycling. Well, here it's not. It's about the team and getting as many points as you can. So for that group, they got pretty close, inside of 10 seconds there at about 35K to go. But as Tamara Moore is going to pick up top points across the line again, we're looking at bonus points here, but I expect that gap starts to go out up over 10 seconds now. That chase group got close, but I think that's as close as they're going to get, because that surge for the bonus points, that might be the final nail in the chasing coffin here. But they still are in the points, right? Where they're racing, that second group is going to decide who is the top team today. No doubt about it. It's not everything for the front group here of five, but this is where the race win is happening and the Lionesses' share of the points here.
It's certainly worth them keeping the speed up, but you're right. You observed it spot on that gap went from being 9-10 seconds out to 16-17 seconds. And Tracy Moore and Morgan Aldridge lost quite a lot of time at that intermediate sprint, but not a lot of damage was done to that front bunch. So I'm not sure that they will be able to regroup, because we do have another sprint coming up shortly. It is a bit of a double whammy where they do, between sprints, kind of only need to look after each other, re-get their breath back, drop those shoulders, relax a little bit and go again. They're very organised. This looks really very civilised. I mean, is that the best word we can use? Because civilised. Nobody's bombing through, nobody's dropping off, everybody's taking their turn. We haven't seen any fisticuffs happen yet. No cranky comments coming through about anybody having to work. They're all kind of taking responsibility.
A very classy group. The thing for this group is they're not really that concerned about what's happening behind them either here. As you said earlier today, and I thought it was a great comment, if you're in a chase group 20 seconds back, it's not because you're having the best day of your life, right? And so when you look at it now, these women know that they're the five strongest. They're going to be very confident. And now the end game is what you start thinking about. Sometimes when you're in a group, you're looking behind you and in front of you. This group, it's all about the finish, all about trying to close this one out. If you're Revo scores, I think anything less than going 1-2 today is going to be a disappointment for them out of this group. The other team's looking to upset that apple cart, and there's a lot of talent out here. I certainly think that Cindy Lowe wishes that we were on a mountaintop finish today. She's been climbing like an angel out here, and that's going to be the Penn Velo rider in the red and white moving up to the front of the group. Kat Salthouse is the ATP rider in gray and orange here. You can see the Revo kit of, I guess I'd call that blue, yellow, and black. A little bit of pink in there as well. See the Canadian flag of Anna Rogers here. Front group at a little more than 10K to go right now.
Well, the last 10K is reasonably uneventful when it comes to the course. So I think that short of anybody taking a bit of a suicide attack, they would most likely come toward the finish in a bunch. Not to say that a final attack in the closing kilometres isn't also a great tactic and strategy that, regardless of the course, is something that is
Revo,
deployed quite efficiently over the time.
Kate, if you're Revo, do you?
Look, I think that they're in the box seat. The onus isn't really on them. I think it's certainly more on an Ange McRae, who has the legs, has the tenacity, and also Cindy Lowe. We know that she's got great legs. She does prefer a climb, but in saying that, she does have that acceleration. And a bit of a sneaky move from her that she could employ is we've seen a lot of the riders drop power-ups, feather power-ups in a sprint in order to accelerate and to make just that difference in trying to gap and surprise the competition a little bit. Cindy Lowe kind of has that natural ability because she does have such a high power to weight acceleration on her. So if she timed it right, and that's something that we can't give away in commentary, we certainly don't know when that right time to attack is or when they're doing it, and it can catch us by surprise, everybody by surprise. So I think the one thing I will say is, please, I don't want to see anybody attacking from the front. It's a mistake a lot of riders make, especially at the end of races when they're a bit fatigued. Yeah, that's my second pro tip for the day. If you've got good legs, lay off a length or two and run at them so that when you hit that group that you are trying to attack, you are already going significantly faster than them. That'll make it quite hard for them to respond. Exactly. Let's take a quick look at these bonus points. Anna Rogers, she is on top on 8 points. Alicia Stats on 6. They are both Revo Scores riders. We talked about them being dominant, and that table says it all. Ange McRae, you little beauty, on 4 points for the BRT Doom Kittens. Morgan Aldridge on 4 points. Good legs today, but she is dangling 17 seconds off the back with Tracy Moore in no man's land. Joy Connolly has a good kick on her, and she is on 3 points. Stephanie Ossenbrink, the Aussie, okay, she's a Canadian, but we're going to claim her. She's on 3 points. And Kat Salthouse for ATP Swarm also on 2. So the table does look a bit different this week, Dave, I'd say, than other weeks, because usually we see, if there's 7 ladies, we'll see 5 of them be Revo Scores. So even though they are firmly on top and in control at the moment, it is interesting that as we go down, they are all from a number of different teams. So pretty impressive, almost banding together from the rest of the peloton to neutralise that benefit that they have for a letter. So let's take a look over at the men's race now. So they're 34 kilometres in. They are on the aqueduct. They're about to take a left-hand turn and go into that sprint. It does flatten out over the top here. A much smaller bunch, Dave, than we saw last time.
Well, Nystrom, the Costa Rican, has been fantastic out here today, and he's going to do it again, picking up top bonification here. We'll score the top 3 across the line. Let's see what kind of damage this does. So again, that left turn, then under the gantry, then another left turn begins the descent, where if you're not latched onto the train, you're going to be in for a real fight. There's a decent, it looks like everybody's going to make it here. A lot of depth right now, Kate, in our men's race. We're going to go back and take a look at the replay. Nystrom just doesn't miss a step out here, picking up yet another bonus sprint. So that'll be 3 points there. the guys not all
It's
that far behind the women out on course. These races started pretty close to each other. So, yeah, they're already moving into their finale as well. Again, this is live
and
action
it's
now at the front of the group.
again like the women, they're not too far now from that other intermediate sprint. It's been interesting watching the men sprint for the intermediates because generally none of them are riding all the way to the line. It hasn't been that close a push. What we're seeing is a rider like Nystrom who's accelerating, getting quite a gap, and then able to kind of cruise it through over the line. You don't really use too much energy when you do that, when you keep that acceleration within a couple of seconds. Your heart rate doesn't tend to go up too high when you do it like that. That's pretty smart riding. I think that's a very strategic way to get intermediate points without burning too many matches. But the Costa Rican team have been pretty impressive. And I've got to say, in the team's time trials, week on week, they've been improving not only their time and their speed, but also their form out on course. And so I think that they're a really good example of how, as the weeks go by, they're really developing into a more competitive and hardy team, even when you do have some clear dominance from riders like Nystrom. So now they are back on the Pave sprint. Dirty Rascals ride. It's Lawrence who makes the move early. Again, this big acceleration, dropping the feather power up to make it that little bit easier. But I'm not sure he's going to hold on here. He's got a fairly big charge coming from Richardson.
Wow.
I think Nystrom got
close.
it. He didn't, did he?
Got it?
I think Nystrom might have snuck across, taken those points.
Perfectly
We
timed.
were just talking about how he was a very smart intermediate sprinter, and look at that. He's making us sound smart, Dave.
Well, he really backs it up here. Watch how he only leads this race for 5 meters, and that's the 5 meters where the finish line was. Again, we'll have to go back and take a closer look, but my goodness, that's a millimeter at the line. It always looks like the rider going faster, Kate. If you give a little bit of advantage to the red and blue, that would be Nystrom, the Costa Rican. But yeah, I mean, if I was scoring that by eye, my natural tendency would be to ooh, boy, that is so close. All right. Well, we'll see what the back end API says. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure, though, a lot of love for. Go ahead, Kate.
Oh, no, I was just urging them to not leave their sprint too late, because those photo finishes are very, very tough to call, and sometimes the back-end system might slightly disagree with what we see. Let's take a look at the bonus points here. Philippe Nystrom,
Wow.
well, that's no
Leading
surprise,
up.
is it? 12 points. But,
Perfect score.
Kieran Lewis, very good point scoring there from Kieran Lewis. He's on 6. We saw him make some big efforts early on. He's clearly got good legs. Has he run out of legs, or is he biding his time sitting in and waiting for the finish? I guess time will tell on that. Travis Frazier from OMG on 4 points. Cameron O'Reilly on 2. Nick Zendler 2. Sean Richardson also on 2. Matt Lawrence and RC Avani, they have both picked up 1 point. Avani, he's been pretty impressive in some sprints as well in the earlier round. This is a pretty big bunch. This is a bigger bunch than we've seen heading into the finish in quite a while. So this will be an interesting sprint. And we've seen it time and time again in the last couple of community races, riders going too early in that final sprint. So we'll have to see the timing of that final sprint and make sure everybody isn't getting a little bit too excited and just going that smidge too early, because it hasn't really paid off from the racing we've seen so far.
Yeah, it really, that has been the story. More so, it is timing is critical in that sprint. We've talked about that during the day as well, how important reconning the race and watching the other categories racing out there, or the other divisions, I should say, time zones, and seeing how it plays out. Because if you haven't seen that finish, it comes at you incredibly quickly. It's not the only sprint finish we have out here in the world of Zwift that does that, but by the time you hit that hard right-hand turn, you're less than 100 meters, or really just a few seconds from finishing there. It's too late to make up any ground. Kind of like a lot of criteriums that you would have done here in North America. You're kind of racing into the last corner. Not completely, but there's an element of that.
The good thing about something like a crit race is that you have lap after lap to choose. We've dropped the feed for a second. That'll come back soon. They're working in the back end to fix that. Is Dave, you see lap after lap, you get to see the landmarks and you get to say, I will accelerate at the third light post after the corner. And you kind of get to try it out a bit and see how you go. Depending on how far the finish is from the last corner, you may have no chance of winning if you're not in the top three. But it also might be a case of make sure you're just moving up at that point in order to time it. They don't get that opportunity in these road races. And it can be a little bit difficult when you recon these courses to know exactly what the flavour of the race will be, how many you'll be sprinting against in the finish, how fast you'll be going. But they do need to find landmarks. So once they go under the bridge, that's too early. Once they go over that sprint line that indicates that final sprint is coming up, that is also too early. So they need a landmark between the sprint line and between that corner you were talking about, and choose somewhere in the middle, because when they go too early, they just continually get swamped on the line. I know it's an easy thing to do, but that's probably the tactic that we've seen bring the most riders undone so far. So we'll have to see. It'll be interesting with this little group of 5, Dave, because it's kind of a mini version of what's going to play out in the men. Same course, same dynamic in terms of we've got some pretty impressive sprinters in there, but certainly very different when it's 5 versus 50. Well, look at this. We've got some beautiful aerial shots here. Got the helicopter out and the drone out, just looking at France. So we can see on the right-hand side, we actually get to see the riders chatting a bit. I think Dave might have popped out for a cup of tea for a moment there, so he'll be back soon. But in this women's bunch, we've got 5 riders going. Anna Rogers from Revo Scores is up there with Alicia Stats, and they have been riding exceptionally well together so far, but they don't have too far to go.
My thought here, definitely when you look at tactics here, if you're looking at it from Revo's point of view, I would attack with Stats. I would not now, but I would say 600 meters to go. I would unleash her, and that puts you into that beautiful position of forcing. So if you don't chase her, you're giving the race away. And again, we're talking about winning the bike race now, because that's going to be the instinct, the animal instinct that any racer at this level will have. The points will all play out, but now this is all about getting on the top step of the podium. And if you're Revo, that's the team with 2 in this group. I mean, it's bike racing 101. That you want to use that to your advantage. Now, what's the best way to do that? We'll get them chasing one rider. Stats has definitely got the ability to put them under pressure. And if you don't start chasing her, well, there goes the race up the road. And that gives Rogers a huge advantage to sit on this chase, because she is a closer here. So you're between a rock and a hard place if you're trying to beat Revo here, Kate.
Well, we saw it last night in the men's APAC Div 1 that Simon Rich, we thought he was the sprinter that could not be beaten. He had such good legs. He rides for Team ZWC Attack, and he went early, and Anna and I were like, no, what are you doing? And when he got swamped, it later turned out his teammate won the race, Stinger, that was the tactic for them, because they knew that when Rich went, everybody was watching.
A decoy sprint.
He was a decoy. And it was not only really impressive tactics, but I also thought it was just a real development in what we've seen in terms of it being a team event where riders are actually sacrificing themselves in such an obvious way. It's not debatable that Rich could have won that. And it's beautiful to watch, isn't it?
I agree. No, 100%. The beauty here of if you're Alicia Stats attacking is that you then have that millisecond where the other riders wonder who's going to chase, whose responsibility is it, and you're in with the real shot to win there, because a moment's hesitation might be enough. We're not to that point yet, but it comes up quickly here as we watch the odometer ticking through the tenths of kilometers. The finish is just after 48K. So I think it's fair to say we're at the penultimate kilometer has begun now. So we're deep, deep into this one. This is the bike race right here, right now. Can Revo figure out a way with two in this group? Because to be fair, the other three are very, very strong. It was Cindy Lowe in the red and white for Penvelo that lit the fuse out here. Ange McRae is a real fighter, Kate. I mean, it's going to be awfully hard to beat here. Kat Salthouse is ready for this battle. I would say we are locked and loaded. This is not a drill. You've got 5 gladiators ready to bring this one to the line. How's it going to play out? Look in your crystal ball, Kate. What do you think? Should we brace ourselves as they're sitting perfectly positioned to attack right now, sitting at the back of the group? Kate mentioned this is another one of the Kate's pro tips. Attack from the back of the group, trying to use that element of surprise, come up over the top with some momentum, get that gap, and then, man, you got to imagine you've been in the bank, you've got the money, and now you're hightailing it in the getaway car.
Well, you have to absolutely have your foot just a millimeter off the accelerator at this point. That bridge is too early to go for the sprint, but they're not too far off that sprint. The dots across the line, and it's after that they have to consider accelerating. But it's a bit cat and mouse. I mean, they're not moving too quickly at the moment, so they need to make sure they're in a good gear that they can accelerate on. One that's not too heavy, one that's not too light.
So Lowe's not going to play around.
This is not as surprising. We knew that she could go with that element of attack. We know that she's very speedy when she accelerates, but she has gone early. Anna Rogers in hot pursuit from Revo scores. She's got Salthouse on the wheel. Alicia Stats. Can she pull it off, Dave?
Well, she's going to make this into an endurance sprint. I love where her mind is at. Is if you don't want to turn this into just a straight up wattage contest, you've got to be clever. She's done it. She has done it. Cindy Lowe winning with a brave late race attack. Boom, boom. Out go the lights here in France. Congratulations to Cindy Lowe and Penvelo. But it looks like the points now for the teams, again, a lot of riders still out on course. We'll start tallying them up. But it looks like another good day for Revo scores here in that. But Cindy Lowe, congratulations. I say chapeau. Tip my cap to you. Very smart ride today. Aggressive, smart. That's a wicked combination. Looks like we're jumping back in with the men, Kate. They're down to 2K to go themselves.
Whoa, this is a good one. A couple of K to go. Pretty big bunch. But we've got all the usual suspects here of sprinting. Frazier, he's got a good kick on him. We've seen Nystrom. He's been pretty dominant today. As well, but is Kieran Lewis in there because he had pretty good legs early on? So we'll have to see as those names tick over to see if we can find him.
I did. He's got the orange jersey with the black arrow helmet, and he's sitting around 10th rider right now. So you might not see him, but he's there. Definitely there.
All right.
It's kind of hard, but there he is, right in the middle. Right in the middle.
I can see. This will be an interesting sprint because what we saw with Cindy Lowe was exactly as we talked about it, using your natural advantage to kind of take advantage of that sprint because we know that she can accelerate even though she's not necessarily a sprinter. She timed that perfectly. She caught them by surprise and they were left napping and they had no answer. The attacks start in the men. It looks like we just had a rider hit out off the front. Flanagan, look at him go. He's opened a gap. Oh, look at that avatar. That's fabulous between the beard, the hair, and the little beret. How very French of him.
You know what Cindy Lowe really showed us, I think, Kate, is a lot of times winning bike races isn't about identifying your strength and using that. It's finding their weakness and using that against them. That's the mental tai chi that you see in the sport of professional or elite or the highest level of bike racing that we have out here. For a second, I thought that was a mask that Flanagan had on, being COVID compliant. But no, it's a mask of pain that he's putting on their faces behind him. Look at this one, Kate. Love the effort.
What a delight that somewhere in the world you don't have to wear masks. Zwift is very no mask friendly. He's got a really good setup. We haven't talked much about bike choice today, but he's got a very good setup with the disc wheel. So very fast. And the sprinters have tended to choose this setup on the S-Works over the Tron bike. There's been kind of a bit of conjecture about which
the
wheels to
fastest
choose. He's
ride.
got an 808 on the front, so maybe not the fastest front wheel he could possibly have, but still Flanagan, good choice. We're still on your side. We think he did well with that. Certainly best beret out on field, but this bunch is coming at him pretty quick. They're only 2 seconds behind, and they don't have long left to run here. I think very brave move from Flanagan, but I'm not sure he'll be able to pull this off, especially as the might of the bunch is chasing behind them. O'Reilly is in there. We know that he's got a pretty good turn of speed when it comes down to a sprint. And I think by design, Dave, a lot of the riders that are racing on Zwift are pretty speedy and they've got pretty good power. It's like you don't see many climbers turn up to a crit similar. You don't see too many lightweight climbers turning up to these Zwift races. So a lot of them have a lot of power. Flanagan's still in the lead. 1 second back. Oh, and here it comes. The attacks are coming thick and fast from the bunch. Richardson moves early, too early though. They've only just hit the sprint line.
18
so Will Martin
watts
on the
per
move
kilo.
now.
Holy cow. That's going to dim the power grid all over France, and even that wasn't enough, as it's going to be Finesse Wahoo. Edwin Park gets it. Park for the win here, at least that's what I'm seeing. We'll have to take a look at the back-end API, but Edwin Park, Finesse Wahoo in the house. That's a win in my book out there. What a finale. What a day of racing it's been in the Zwift Racing League, Kate.
Oh, isn't the timing interesting? And the use of power-ups. We don't sometimes give enough credit to the strategic use of the old power-up. But Edwin Park, he timed that perfectly. And I think he got Martin by surprise a bit because Martin was out of his seat and still accelerating over the line, which says to me that perhaps he mistimed that a little bit, which we have seen time and time again. So certainly these courses are tough, Dave. I mean, we keep seeing riders execute this fabulous strategy out on course, but maybe get a bit nervous toward the end in that sprint finish, maybe miss the jump. I think possibly the Revo Scores girls would be kicking themselves that Lowe got the jump on them because they didn't even get to use their power.
Yeah, Lowe timed that one perfectly, talking about Cindy's win there. It's interesting. I mean, these races are so selective that it's hard to blame the teams for being a bit conservative in the finale. And you also remember that this is not about the outright individual win here. Very different than regular day in, day out bike racing. This is a team sport more than ever. And that's part of the beauty of the Zwift Racing League is the tactics change a little bit. The mindset changes a little bit. And it's about keeping. So instead of blowing up races with sensational single rider rides, the heroics, it's more subtle here, where it's the teams that can keep their riders together, keep them in that front group, but drop the other team's riders. It's such a fine line out there. Week 7 didn't disappoint the Zwift Racing League, Kate.
Well, we've got 3 more weeks left to go, so the teams still have a few more outings to make some movements on the points table. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the results and how it played out today. Pretty entertaining for us, I've got to say that. Candice Lowe, a big win from her. Really, really impressive riding at the end there with that late. I don't know if we'd call it a late attack or an early sprint, but either way, she nailed it. Anna Rogers in second, Alicia Stats in third, Ange McRae in fourth, Kat Salthouse in fifth, Tracy Moore coming across in sixth with Morgan Aldridge. They did a good job of not getting too far behind, but weren't able to catch up quite yet. Daisy Barretto in 8th, Joy Connolly in 9th, and Rachel Winchester in 10th. So let's now take a look at the overall standings there. Dave, I'll throw this one to you.
Well, thank you, Kate. Revo Scores still on top of the table with 139 ATP Swarm. Pretty comfortably there in second now with a few races to go. BRT Doom Kittens in third. That's the real battle, it looks like. Just 2 points separating Cryogen, the Mount Evans edition, from the Doom Kittens. So good luck to all our racers there. Wadi Inc. WB in fifth. Then we got the Revo Musketeers. Penn Velo, the team of Candice, our winner, Candice Lowe. Today, AHDRL, that's the Australian Hump Day Ride Ladies Bada Boom edition, and Instafund La Prima. That's your top 9 teams in our Women's Division 1. West, the final division of racing out here today.
So let's
that's
take
where it
a look at the
stands.
men's if we can.
We're going to just take a deep breath here, make sure that we have all our ducks in a row as they're still collecting some data. You know what? I think we're better to hold off here right now because I'm not exactly sure. We called Edwin Park as the win, and that's what it looked like. So I'm wondering, rather than make it worse, I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, and look, sometimes we can have, it's pretty complicated in the back end, the technical side of all of this. So we will get the results through and make sure we can ratify those for everybody. I know that after you've raced, it's a bit of a nervous wait to see how everything is playing out.
Yeah, so don't put all your faith into what you saw. Yeah, we'll figure that all out. So when you go back online, we'll make sure that we get that right. But head on over to WTRL.racing.
Yeah, we'll leave it up to the data nerds to get that one sorted, hey?
Yeah, rely on the nerds. That's our best bet.
Yeah.
So it was a fantastic day, no doubt about it. The wattage nerds still have data to look at, but I know by do you call it chicken skin or goosebumps down in Australia? When you get excited
goosebumps.
And you get
we are a goosebump nation. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, you're a goosebump commentator, Kate Bates, because that was outstanding job today. And make sure you give your colleague Anna Russell a shout out for us. It was a lot of fun. And I certainly love having Nathan producing for us, Nathan Guerra, he's involved in every broadcast, including what's amazing to me is I think his day starts at 2 a.m. when he's doing the first race APAC there with you guys. So it's always a big day on Tuesdays.
Our big team in North America, I think you all need a cup of tea and perhaps an early night, as early as you can possibly get it. Dave, thank you for the excellent camaraderie once again. But don't forget that on the 5th and 6th of December, we are not colleagues. We are competitors because we will be racing for that Nations Cup. So everybody pop on your national jersey, get some pride out. Aussies, I want to hear a bit of a chant going. So head over to WTRL.racing and you can check out all of the details of the Nations Cup, which is the prelude into the UCI Esports World Championship, the first time they've ever done that. It is exciting times and it is your chance to contribute and compete for your nation and see who we can get across the line. So the top 22 nations by subscribers will have an event. Make sure you check the schedule. It's around the 11 a.m. time on the Saturday and Sunday for the Aussies. And make sure you check your time zone in the US. Dave Towle, I'm looking for you. I'm coming at you. I'm going to back Australia for this. And I also encourage everybody to take some selfies and to tag Zwift Community League and WTRL on your social media to make sure we can all kind of come together and be a little bit competitive.
You're a legend, Kate Bates. Absolute blast. I can't wait to be back with you next week. Keep up the great job down there. But I'll see you on the race course, buddy. Good luck.
I'll see you on the race course.